It's finally October, or as I like to call it, sBOOKy month. Why is it called sBOOKy month on this channel? Well, it's because it's the month that Halloween is in, and I'm gonna review a bunch of spooky books once a week. It's also called sBOOKy month because Hollow Reed and like Rito-ween and a lot of other really good ones were taken. Maybe sBOOKy month wasn't taken because it's a bad name. Shut the fuck up. See, I've got my Chucky t-shirt. I've got my sBOOKy mug, right? And this week I'm gonna review Stephen King's Carrie, a very sBOOKy book. I'm gonna make this a fucking thing. I'm gonna make it work. This is Stephen King's first book. He's a talented motherfucker, right? And that becomes immediately clear immediately from the start of this book because it's pretty good and it's his first book. Like the prose is good, everything is very professional already. Oh, here comes it's a black cat. It's my black cat. Ooh, it crossed in front of me. Blah. Anyway, I'm not super versed in Stephen King's novels. I've read half of it, not it, but I've read half of It, the book, with Pennywise. I've read all of Misery, and that's it. So I wanted to start my Stephen King journey at the start, right, with Carrie. I really want to read Talisman and Dark Tower and stuff, but I wanted to start with his origin. And clearly, no fucking wonder this chap is like one of the most successful authors ever, because his premiere novel is really good. It's pretty short. It's like 80,000 words, and it gets into a lot of themes, a lot of very dense themes very quickly. Right off the bat, you're seeing Carrie get bullied by a bunch of teenage girls, and they're all immediately, vicious, and it kind of shows how cruel teenagers can be as they're growing up, and how mob mentality can affect people, because there's people watching this happen, and they're thinking, this is not okay, but I'm not going to object, and then, they get this simple human desire to fit in, to do anything to become part of the crowd, even if that something is, pretty objectively evil. And it starts with Carrie, having her first, period, right? And so it's immediately getting into how growing up affects people in different ways. And even the girls who are being vicious to her during this part, who, you go into their mind and they're objectively fuck Carrie, she deserves this. It's slowly revealed that they have their problems of their own, right? And what I find especially interesting about these themes of growing up and of, dealing with your body changing is that in relation to God, right? Because definitionally, God is not a natural entity, right? Even if you believe in him, he is not something that, explicitly and definitionally, he is something that does not exist among us. So it's interesting to see Carrie, who's super religious, and her mom is, super oppressive and also religious, deal with flowering, right, with having your period, because she's questioning, does this make me unholy, even though it's something that has to happen to her. And this is bolstered by obviously all the girls ostracizing her and treating her as strange just for this. And I found that this happens within the first few pages immediately enthralling, despite not even, obviously I knew that she was telepathic. This is a legendary story, but even without getting into that first, I was immediately okay, this is going to get deep. And then you have the spooky supernatural stuff sewn into it, and that helps, continue the intrigue, and it brings a whole nother level, because this is a woman who is both symbolically divulging from God's intention from her, as her mom puts it. Her mom does not like seeing that she's growing and then is going through puberty and, is now able to become pregnant, which is for some reason against God. And then she's also getting these supernatural powers that fucking let her blow things up with her head. And it's extra interesting to see the contrast between how her mom treats these supernatural abilities and how she treats Carrie being on her period. It's she's yeah, you're a devil witch, whatever. You can fucking lift things with your head. But you had your period? What the fuck is wrong with you? Anyway, I think the structuring device that kind of grounds everything is super cool. It's not just Carrie doing things and it's not all from her POV. Some of it is from newspapers or articles that cover this supernatural phenomena of telepathy. And then also articles and texts that cover what happens at the end of this book, which is always very ominous fucking foreshadowing. And people that are in the story now are chronologically chronicling their experiences, and they're calling themselves survivors. So you're like, ugh, like some real bad. I actually didn't know how the story ended. I knew the bucket of blood, obviously that's legendary, but I didn't actually know what happened past that. It just makes it really tragic and real, right? There's a few moments where things are being really romanticized, like classic teenage rom-com, such as when like the hot guy asks nerdy but subtly cute Carrie to the ball or whatever, right? And that's like, she shows up and she's so beautiful and everybody's like, is that Carrie? Oh my gosh. But you know it's not going to last. But it's interesting not only seeing those like stereotypes subverted, but it's interesting knowing while you're reading it, you have the dramatic irony of knowing that they're going to be subverted, right? Like, not only is the event cool, but knowing like the people I'm seeing right now are either dead or called survivors. So sup gonna go real good. And it's fucked up because you sense that Carrie's going to be responsible for a lot of these people's deaths, but you still sympathize with her because, you know, she's had a terrible upbringing and she is being bullied even now. And there's a whole plan about, you know, ruining her only, like, one of the only good nights of her entire life. I find it interesting that a lot of what happens, like, with her, like, explosion of power at the end, that can, I feel like, symbolically and metaphorically can be taken as someone snapping, someone alienating themselves as they're bullied too much, right? Committing suicide, like things that happen in day-to-day life because they're bullied, because teenagers are fucking relentlessly cruel. Just imagine if the internet existed, would Carrie was fucking... Actually, I feel like if the internet existed, Carrie would be pretty popular. I don't know. The 60s sucked. Let's just say that. Anyway, yeah, it can metaphorically be taken in that way, but also it is literally happening because of the articles and stuff. So it's simultaneously a very good, deep story, like, surrounding these themes, and also a fun, goofy fucking sci-fi movie about a telepathic girl. Not really goofy, it's just more fucked up in general. Cool to see, like, the origin of Stephen King's prose. He has always been weird. It's cool to see, and, like, I remember especially reading Misery, I was like, this guy is fucking wild. I've never read prose like this, and that is perhaps because he was buffered by copious amounts of drugs, but, you know, that's okay. It's not okay. You know what I mean? But in this first book, you know, I don't know the history, but I don't think he was, and it's interesting to still see how he's subverting these norms. Like, he'll just, like, write a paragraph and cut it off without a period or any sort of punctuation, no em dash or anything, and have a thought in parentheses, like suddenly inserted into Carrie's head, and then it goes right back to it without skipping a beat. And it's an interesting way to tell this story, especially with someone who's telepathic like Carrie, and telekinetic. I guess I should also say that she is, like, having these intrusive thoughts, and they're even more powerful because she is magical. What's also interesting is that sometimes these thoughts will be, like, from a different timeline, or not timeline, but from the future or the past. It'll be from a different character who's not even the POV right now. So I think it's such an interesting way to make these sometimes normal, superficial happenings be, you know, reminding you, like, this lady's not normal. Things are going to go wrong very soon. So yeah, I mean, Stephen King's first novel being this wacky and cool, spooky, aged pretty well in my opinion. I think it covers some very fucked up themes, especially probably very, like, scary back in the day, right? Like, these are untouchable things being talked about, like women growing up and being on their period, women, like, bullying, and small town America actually fucking sucking sometimes, if not all the time. So I think it's brave in that way. I mean, obviously now there are things like it, but this feels like a first time thing, and it feels like it was done really well. Even if I knew this book came out today, I'd be like, that was pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and fucking give it an 8.0, Steven. Can't wait to read more. I kind of want to do The Shining. Who knows? It's spooky month.